Hi, my name is Daniel Roster, and this is my Anatomy Assignment 3 presentation. First, arteries. Arteries' job is to carry blood from the heart to the body. When blood leaves the heart, it's pumped from the left ventricle at an extremely high pressure, which is pumped into an artery. Arteries are found very deep in the body, but they suffer from such a high pressure due to all the blood travelling through them at high speed that you can actually feel your pulse. The structure of an artery consists of, they have a thick muscular wall in order to withstand the speed of which the blood travels at. They have a smooth muscle inner lining, so there's less friction from the blood in the walls, which therefore allows the blood to travel a lot faster to the working muscles and then supply the working muscles with oxygen. Also, arteries are also surrounded by lots of smooth muscle as well, as this allows the artery to contract, so therefore it helps maintain the blood pressure around the artery and inside the artery. As you can see from the diagram, the thick outer wall there goes around the side, which is made of smooth muscle. And also, as a narrow centre where the blood flows, that is also the bit that's made from smooth muscle to allow the pressure and the blood to travel at high speeds. Secondly, arterioles. Arterioles are branches off of an artery. These have a lot thinner walls than artery, but artery's job is to move blood around the body to the capillaries in response to the demands of oxygen. So the arterioles are the bits that branch off of an artery to carry the blood around the body and all the way into the capillaries to allow for gaseous exchange. Also, arterioles also play a part in vascular shunting. Vascular shunting is also known as getting a stitch. It stops the flow of blood to certain areas of the body where the oxygen and blood is not needed as much, so to allow for the blood to travel to muscles that are requiring a lot more blood and oxygen. So if you're running it, for example, it would probably stop the blood into the stomach and the intestines in order to allow for more blood and oxygen to travel to the legs in order to allow them to work at higher intensity for a longer period of time. Capillaries. Capillaries are extremely narrow and their walls are only 1 cell thick. The blood that travels through the capillaries is of a higher pressure than what it is in the veins, but it's a lower pressure than the arteries. This is because capillaries need to be allowed time to oxygenate blood from gaseous exchange, so therefore they reoxygenate deoxygenated blood and eliminate of any waste products or bad substances that are found in the blood. Also, capillaries branch off into many different networks, so therefore it allows for a bigger surface area. So the bigger the surface area, the more blood and more time it has to oxygenate blood, so therefore increasing the amount of oxygenated blood in the body to be able to supply the working muscles with better nutrients and more nutrients at a faster speed. Veins. Veins have the responsibility of returning deoxygenated blood to the heart. Veins have a very large diameter, so they do not have to handle too much pressure and are able to withstand the pressure that is applied in them. So therefore they are very wide in order to have enough room to be able to withstand a higher volume of blood without causing any too much stress on the walls. Veins also have valves inside them that open and close like a gate in order to prevent the backflow of blood and also to push blood up through the vein, as obviously the blood is travelling upwards, so therefore it naturally is going to fall back down due to gravity, and therefore the gates close to prevent this, and then they also open in order to push the blood up through the vein and back towards the heart. This is done from muscle contractions, as they create a small particle of air inside the vein that is able to push the blood all the way back up to the heart. It's quite a long process, but over time it's repeated, and then the blood then returns to the heart. Structure of a vein, is that they have a much thinner walls than arteries, but they have a very large diameter to cope with the pressure inside the veins, and therefore also they don't need as thicker walls as an artery, as the blood that travels through them is at a very much slower pace, and there is not as much pressure. How blood travels around the body. Blood is pumped from the left ventricle, and then it goes into an artery, where the blood is passed around the body, on through into arterioles, where it's passed around the body to all the working muscles. And also vascular shunting occurs in this place as well, to oxygenate blood there. The blood is then deoxygenated and going into the capillaries for gas exchange, where the blood is then stripped of all its waste products and bad substances and is oxygenated again. That is passed through the veins, where small muscle contractions occur to create spaces of air to push the blood through the vein and back to the heart, ready to be pumped around the body again. Lungs and lobes. Lobes are what make up a lung. Obviously, there are two sides to the lung. On the left side of the lung, that has two lobes, and the right lung has three lobes. Each individual lobe is split into different segments. The right lung has 10 segments, and the left lung has 8 segments. This means that each individual lung carries its own blood supply and connective tissue. So therefore, if one of the segments was therefore to get infected, the rest of the lung would carry on to work correctly. So therefore, that one segment can be actually removed, and it wouldn't really affect how the body works. To be honest, the lung would carry on working in the same way it did before. So therefore, that's an advantage if when fighting infection, as the lungs can still strengthen and work in the same way they were, without too much of a problem, as the segments can be split up and each have their own blood supply. So if the blood supply was stopped to one part of the lung, the rest of the lung will continue to get their own blood supply and continue to work in a normal fashion. Pleural membrane, visceral pleura, and pleural fluid. Visceral pleura wraps around the lung kind of like a cling film in order to separate the two parts of the lung. As you can see, there is a quite line around the diagram. The inner line surrounding the right lung, that would be the visceral pleura, which acts as the cling film, and in that space next to it is the pleura space. In that space is what's called pleural fluid, and that is the main function in order to prevent friction between the lung and the heart, and to ensure that neither begin to wear away or start frictioning. So the fluid there is quite vital in order to keep the lung in its correct shape and correct function. And then on the outside of that is the pleural membrane. The pleural membrane is what keeps the lungs inflated and allow them to keep working, as if one of the lungs was punctured, then the pleural membrane will keep the other lung airtight and inflated, so if one lung was punctured, the other one would still be able to be inflated and work correctly. The thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity is the main function of the thoracic cavity, is to protect the heart, the lungs, and the esophagus. The expansion and relaxation also supports in breathing. As you can see from the diagram there, when breathing in, the rib cage moves out, and the lungs therefore expand, and then the diagram will contract and move down relax and move down, in order to allow lots more air to enter into the thoracic cage. And then when breathing out, the lungs get smaller and constrict, the diaphragm tends to contract and move up, and the rib cage will move down and in order to push all the air out of the top of the thoracic cavity there, as you can see from the diagram. Internal and external intercostal muscles. Both sets of muscles work as an antagonistic pair, so very similar to the bicep and the tricep. When one contracts, the other one will actually relax. Our external muscles, the job of those is to expand really and create enough space for air to travel in, similar to the thoracic cavity. And then the internal intercostal muscles contract and squeeze in order to push the air out. The advantage to this is that the air gets pushed out, and most of the air that gets pushed out is carbon dioxide, so therefore it will eliminate all the waste products used and that is found inside the body, therefore increasing the levels of oxygen to allow to be delivered to our working muscles, therefore to increase the intensity and duration that we are able to work at. As you can see from the diagram there, your diaphragm relaxes as we breathe out. The chest cavity and the lungs will contract, and then the external intercostals relax, and then the internal intercostals and abdominals contract, therefore to allow for more air to get in. And then, as you can see on the left, when breathing in, our external intercostal muscles contract, our diaphragm contracts, and the chest wall and lungs expand, therefore allowing for more air to enter into the thoracic cavity there. Thermoregulation. This is basically vasoconstriction and vasodilation of arteries and veins. Vasodilation is the key one, as vasodilation is the relaxation of the smooth muscle inside an artery. Therefore it will dilate and expand, therefore allowing more blood to pass through. Vasoconstriction is the opposite. It's where the artery contracts and the smooth muscle pulls the blood vessel in tight and decreases in diameter, therefore decreasing the volume of blood that's allowed to pass through. Vasodilation therefore increases the amount of blood and oxygen that is being delivered to a certain part of the body as the diameter is increased, so the volume of blood and oxygen that passes through is also increased, therefore allowing more blood and oxygen to be delivered to the working muscles. Vasoconstriction reduces the amount of blood and oxygen that is getting delivered to a certain part of the body, as it constricts and becomes tighter, therefore allowing less air and less blood and oxygen to go pass through, so therefore this decreases the diameter. Vasodilation occurs when we are exercising, as our muscles demand a higher volume of blood and oxygen in order to keep them working at high intensity. So therefore our blood vessel's diameter increases, to therefore increase the speed and volume of blood that can pass through. So basically, if you look in the bottom right corner there, vasodilation is the top one. As you can see in the middle there, that little orange circle is a normal vascular, the normal diameter of inside an artery. And then at the top there you can see vasodilation. As you can see, the diameter is much wider, therefore to increase the amount of blood flow and oxygen that is able to pass through. So therefore the blood can be delivered to muscles at a higher speed and at a higher pressure to be able to allow our body to work for longer at a higher intensity. Vasoconstriction also can occur during exercise, as it can reduce the amount of blood and oxygen travelling to a part of the body that does not require as much blood and oxygen as our working muscles. Therefore our blood vessels constrict and decrease in diameter in order to reduce the amount of blood that travels to this area of the body. As you can see there, again back to the diagram, the normal vascular tone, as you can see in the centre there, and vasoconstriction, therefore the diameter, if you look, is a lot smaller, so therefore it does not allow as much blood and oxygen to travel through, therefore preventing a lot of blood travelling to a certain part of the body. So an example again would be if you're running, you wouldn't want as much blood and oxygen delivered to your intestines and stomach as you would in the legs, so the artery would contract, allowing less blood to pass through, and therefore increasing the amount of blood travelling towards the legs and the amount of oxygen that's going to the legs to allow our body to work at a higher intensity for a longer period of time. Thank you for watching.